Good morning, eighth graders. So this is kind of like what we like to consider our bridge from catastrophic events into meteorology. So we are talking 9.1.0 notes all on severe weather. We're going to talk about severe weather ranging from winter storms, which we experience regularly, to tornadoes, which we always have the possibility for come spring, but then thunderstorms, hurricanes, tropical storms, things like that. These are the weather events that can cause mass destruction within less of an earth exactly, like shaking and moving, trying to cause all this destruction. So, severe weather. We are covering 4 different standards throughout this entire unit. We have that 3.2, which starts back in catastrophic events, so applies the understanding about how to interpret the data on natural hazards and how it can be used to forecast future events and inform the development of technologies to mitigate these events. So we can't stop these weather events from happening, but how can we lessen the likelihood of casualties, injuries, damage, things like that. But then we're going to start getting into ESS 2-5, 6, and 4. So 5, explain how the motion of complex interactions of air masses result in change of weather. 6, develop and use a model to describe how energy transfer impacts atmospheric and oceanic circulation that determines regional climate. And then we're going to start talking about basically the water cycle. So interpret a model to describe the cycling of water throughout Earth's system driven by the energy from the sun and force of gravity. Lots of things we're going to be covering. This is going to be a much longer lecture style notes, but that is because we're going to allow you to kind of move at your own pace because some of this stuff is just review. We experience it all the time. Others of this may be brand new information. So we're just going to kind of do that before we really get into our meteorology unit. So you need to make sure that you for sure are on 9.1.0 notes, severe weather lecture. And we're going to start with winter storms, and then I'll kind of direct you as we go. Okay? So, winter storms. This is the powerful phenomena of blizzards. We're going to talk about characteristics, formations, impacts, and safety precautions. Things that we kind of do without even thinking about it. But I think of my friends who just came to North Dakota and maybe have never experienced winter weather quite like ours. So, what is a blizzard? This is how we define what a blizzard is, just period. It is a severe winter storm with 3 key ingredients. Okay, we have winter storms all the time. They may not always be blizzards. The way that it gets defined as a blizzard is a strong sustained winds, about over 35 miles per hour. Low visibility, so we're looking at less than 0.2 of a mile. So we're talking about essentially like if you were to be at the corner of 9th and 17th, and then to just try to see down to like where the bus loop is. That's as far as we're talking. And then it's less visibility than that for a sustained 3 hours. Okay. And then finally, we need falling or blowing snow. Most of the time in our blizzards, we're not getting fresh snow at the same time, but rather it is our winds picking up what was freshly fallen and just moving it around the way that it does. So the issues with this is that we're looking at the issue of that visibility and travel. I mean, you take a look at the picture kind of behind all these words, like you can't see a lot. And as soon to be newly fresh drivers, this is not something that's fun to actually maneuver in. Okay? So, impacts of blizzards. So, beyond the fact that we sometimes get school called, granted it has to be a really severe blizzard for us, these are some of the other impacts that blizzards can have on our safety. And again, we have been living in blizzard country our entire lives for the most part, to where this doesn't seem like big issues for us because we prepare for them. But again, thinking about my friends who just moved to North Dakota, or if someone else not in North Dakota was watching this, what are some of the concerns that we have? Well, First of all, we have that reduced visibility. That is like our biggest concern with blizzards. This can lead to hazardous travel conditions, accidents, disorientation. I don't know the amount of times like I have either misjudged where the road is. I think of especially one of my first winters out here at our new place. I went into the ditch. Granted, no damage to my car, thank goodness, but because I just had that reduced visibility, I didn't know where my street was. Okay, so that is one of our biggest concerns. The extreme cold. I mean, just a month and a half ago, we were looking at negative 35-degree weather, like as a typical. So the potential health risks of hypothermia and frostbite, this is why we urge you oh so often that like you need to wear your coat, your hats, your mittens, scarves, like cover exposed skin because you don't want to get frostbite. Power outages. Not necessarily an issue that where we are at, but if you think of the blizzards that hit, and I don't even know if you can call them blizzards, but like ice storms that hit, say, like anywhere south of Nebraska, they have power outages all the time, and this is due to super strong winds and heavy snow accumulations, essentially weighing down those wires and causing them to break away. We have developed the necessary technology to mitigate that issue to where if we have downed power, typically it's because a car has run into one of our power junction boxes. Just saying. And then finally, we have property damage. This is probably where we see a lot more of our safety and concerns. Roofs collapsing in. This is just when we get those super heavy, wet snows that just kind of sit up top if you don't rake it off. And then again, it also depends on the type of roof style you have. So that weighing down on trees and branches, just that sort of a thing. Winds getting high enough to where maybe it's pulling some siding off of your homes. I think the biggest concern would be any unkept trees, the amount of wind and the mass of snow sitting on them. The likelihood of them falling down is significant. So that's kind of our biggest one. Also, then you think of like snow piling up where we really don't want it to, any of our exchange vents on our homes causing for possible carbon monoxide poisoning because carbon monoxide can't work its way out of our home. That possible sump pump damage, I'm not living from experience with this, but where your sump pump outtake might be frozen, things like that. So those are more so the things that yes, you can kind of prevent, but also not prevent possible property damage. Biggest thing to keep in mind when we know that there is a blizzard coming, I mean, dang, you look at any of the grocery stores, Walmart, whatever, you notice that like water's going off the shelves. You notice that like staple foods are like cleared out sort of a thing. Because we do have pretty good emergency preparedness when it comes to like big blizzards, and more so grown-ups who just don't necessarily want their kids home all the time, now having to keep their kids home. So they got to prepare for that. Biggest thing is stay informed. So listening to the weather, monitoring school websites to see if travel is ill-advised and maybe school or bus routes have been canceled. Things like that. We are really good at that. We get informed. I always wait for my phone to ring before 5 a.m., hoping for a snow day, things like that. Prepare an emergency kit. So this would be like water, non-perishable foods, first aid kit, warm clothes, blankets, etc. We kind of do that without even thinking. We may not have like a specific tote set off to the side for this, but your grown-ups will make sure that they have plenty of fluids around the house. Non-perishable foods, the amount of Takis and Doritos and stuff like that you probably have in your house on days where you know we might be getting a snowstorm. Things like that. First aid kit, you just know where the bandages are and just don't be silly. And then warm clothes. I've seen the way y'all come to school, so the idea that you are wearing warm clothes on a blizzard day, just you have blankets, you have your closets available to you, things like that. Okay, so that. Stay indoors. If it is a blizzard warning outside, don't go outside. Um, I like the unnecessary travel. Granted, we are not afraid to try to travel in this area. The amount of hockey tournaments that still go on, basketball tournaments or whatever, that we drive through because we're used to it. But try to stay indoors. If you don't have to go out, please don't go out. It's not safe. I don't want to hear like, oh, I was stuck in my car for hours on the side of I-94 because we slid off the edge. Whatever. Okay? Just be safe. Dress warmly. And I know how many kids I yell at every winter because y'all think it's too cool to wear a coat. Wear layers. If you have to go outside, like if you're going out to go shovel your driveway, make sure that you are dressing appropriately. You have thermals on, you have long sleeves, you have sweatshirts, your coat, and you're covering up all of your possibly exposed skin. Just because with how cold our winds do get, it's not safe for your skin. Frostbite is not cute. Makeup doesn't cover it very well. Things like that. So make sure that you're keeping yourself warm, but you also start to notice like if your toes are starting to get too cold, even in your boots, that it's time to take a break inside. Okay. Avoid walking or driving in a blizzard. Visibility is severely compromised, increases your risks of accidents and unnecessary accidents. You'll notice like when they put the guardrail down on any of the interstates or highways, they say like if emergency vehicles have to come get you, I don't know the exact phrasing, but if emergency vehicles have to come and try to save you, you actually get fined on top of that. Because not only did you risk your own life, but now you're risking the lives of any emergency responder. So they don't take too kindly to that. So just be cautious, especially like I said, you guys are going to be driving here in the nearest future. So I just want you to be safe. Okay? So like I said, this has only been like 12 minutes. And that's because we know what to do in blizzards up here for the most part. Some of my friends who maybe are newer to North Dakota, this was just a quick little like, hey, this is what you should do. But yeah, so that's blizzards. Now, moving on.